Today we are going to start transportation in animals. Process of transporting the food and oxygen to cells and tissue, taking away the wastage from them, is being accompanied with the help of very integrated complex system, collectively called as circulatory system in animals. So in case of the animals, the transportation system is called as the circulatory system. Animals show a high degree of vascularization in them. It has a very complicated system of circulation which consists of heart, blood vessels, and blood. Blood is a vascular tissue. It is also called as a fluid matrix connected tissue, having different kinds of components in them, like RBC, WBC, platelets, and many other non-cellular components like carbohydrate, fat, vitamins, proteins, wastage, etc. Now we will try to understand the human circulatory system. Human circulatory system is having different components that we have learned in the previous slide. It having a heart, which is a pumping organ, blood vessels, and blood that we have seen in the previous slide. Our heart is a pumping organ. It measures around a fist of an individual. It is made up of cardiac muscle. It is involuntary in nature, and it remains covered around by a membrane called as pericardial membrane or simply pericardium. And in between the pericardium membrane and heart there is a fluid called as pericardial fluid. Human heart has having 4 chambers. All chambers are divided by septum in them, which is vertical towards their length. The upper part of the heart is the auricular chamber. It is simply called as atrium, and the lower and larger part of the heart is called as the ventricle. Auricle of heart is divided by interauricular septum, whereas the ventricle is divided by a vertical lining of septum, which is called interventricular septum. Now we can understand the heart being a pumping organ. It receives blood from the lungs. This is the pulmonary vein which remains connected with the lungs. From here the blood enters into the left atrium, and from left atrium the blood goes inside the left ventricle by means of bicuspid valve, you can see here, and from there, that is the contraction of the left ventricle pushes the blood again to the largest artery of the body, which is called as aorta. So aorta is the main artery which pushes the blood to all part of the body. Finally, the deoxygenated blood is being collected by lower and upper vena cava. Both of them get infused nearby the heart, called as sinus venosus, and they open into the right atrium. Right atrium opens into the right ventricle by means of tricuspid valve. This is the tricuspid valve. Then this ventricle pushes the blood to the lungs again in order to remove the deoxygenated blood from the body by means of pulmonary artery. This is the pulmonary artery which goes to the lungs. We will see it in double circulation process in the next slide. So we can see the heart is a heavily vascularized structure having many vessels by which it remains connected. It having a covering layer which protects it. This covering layer is known as pericardium. In between the pericardium and heart there is a fluid called as pericardial fluid. Valve plays a very important role in regulating the flow of the blood. Here we can see, here is the bicuspid valve, here is the tricuspid valve. Even this area, this is the semilunar valve. Semilunar valves are found in aorta and pulmonary artery. So these valves are helping in flow of blood in unidirection. They prevent the backflow. So this is the structure of our heart. Now, the blood is in, as we are having the closed circulatory system. Closed circulatory system means blood flows through the blood vessels. It is not, so cells and tissues are not in direct contact of the environment. Blood remains not in contact with the environment directly. So blood vessels are of three types: arteries, capillaries, and veins. Arteries usually taking the oxygenated blood. However, there is an exception. We can see here pulmonary artery, which takes out the deoxygenated blood to the lungs, whereas pulmonary vein takes in the oxygenated blood into the heart. So these are two exceptions. Usually the arteries are carrying the oxygenated blood. They are having very thick wall so that they can withstand with the pressure that is in caused when blood is coming out of the heart. So arteries are taking the blood out of the heart, whereas veins are taking the blood inside the heart. So their wall is not that much thick. Arteries remains under pressure because they are taking out the blood. They remains under the pressure of the pressure generated by the heart due to the pumping, so they don't require to having the valves in them, whereas in case of the veins, as they are taking out the blood from the cells and tissue and bringing it back to the heart, so there is a chance of getting it backflow, so they are having the valves in them. So veins are very distinct from the artery in terms of having the valves in them. Now the arteries branches into the fine distributaries, which is called as capillaries. Capillaries then combines to form the veins. So capillaries are very thin, delicate structure having single cell thickening in them, and they are the site for the exchange of substances with the cell. They don't have any valve, and they do not remain under the pressure of circulation. So this is all about that we have learned about the heart, how it has been protected, and what are the components of the heart, what are the different types of blood vessels, how do they work, etc. Now we will continue with the circulation of heart. It is about the double circulation. You can see in the diagram, this is the lungs, it is heart, this is the representation of the cells and tissue of body. So let us begin with here. This is the lungs. The oxygenated blood comes down to the left atrium by means of the pulmonary vein. This pulmonary veins descends down the blood to the left atrium. From there the blood moves down to the left ventricle by means of bicuspid valves. Then it is again pushed outside by means of the ventricular pressure, and it is delivered by aorta to cells and tissues of the body. Now here in this case, when the blood is reaching to the cells and tissue, the oxygen is get diffused inside the cells, carbon dioxide diffuse out, they have been collected, so deoxygenated blood is been collected, they has been taken by lower, this one is the lower vena cava, this one is the upper vena cava, both of them taking back the deoxygenated blood to the right atrium. Then it gets descends down by through the tricuspid valve present in between the right atrium and right ventricle. Again the right ventricular contraction pushes the blood, deoxygenated blood, to the lungs by means of the pulmonary artery. So we can see that the circulation of the blood in a single circulation, we can see there is a entry of blood to the heart, into the heart is twice. First is this, second is this. So as in a single circulation blood enters twice, so it is called a double circulation. There are two components of the double circulation. You can see there is a circulation between heart and lungs. Similarly, there is a circulation between heart and body, cells and tissue. So circulation between the heart and lungs, it is known as pulmonary circulation. Pulmonus means lungs, and circulation between heart and cells and tissue of the body is called as systemic circulation. So now we can understand that the double circulation is a process in which the blood enters twice into the heart, in which blood is flowing in two parts respectively. First, heart and lungs, and second is heart and cells and tissue. So it is about the double circulation of, in case of the human being. Double circulation is very specific, where four-chambered heart is there. Four-chambered heart is very unique to mammals and birds, and it has been evolved for the warm-blooded animals, where the requirement of energy is too much because they cannot change the body temperature in respect to the environment. They are maintaining their body temperature, so their energy requirement is too much than the poikilothermic or cold-blooded animals. In the next slide, we will try to understand the single circulation in feces. In the previous slide, we have gone through the double circulation process. Now let us try to understand single circulation process. So this is the circulatory path for the single circulation in feces. This area is the gill, this is the heart. Heart in the feces are two-chambered. You can see this is the ventricular part, auricular part. There is no interventricular septum, no auricular septum. So there is a mixing of blood taking place in case of two-chambered or three-chambered heart. Three-chambered heart is found in the reptiles and amphibians. So let us try to understand the single circulation in feces. So oxygen comes to the blood by means of the gills. Gills acts as a filter organ. So this is the passive process of diffusion, where oxygen molecules enters into the blood. From this area, the oxygenated blood goes to cells and tissue of body. They, as we have seen, the respiration. So exchange of gases are taking place here again in cells and tissue. Oxygen has been taken in this area. Carbon dioxide has been released back to the circulatory system. Now this CO2 laden blood is traveling back to the heart. Here heart pumps back this carbon dioxide laden blood to the gills again. So gills again work as a area for the exchange of gases. CO2 being high in concentration will diffuse out to the water in surrounding, and oxygen being higher in the surrounding area will enter into the blood by means of the gills. So feces, amphibians, reptiles, they are cold-blooded animals. Feces are very lower creature. They are having two-chambered heart. They cannot maintain their body temperature. Similarly, amphibians, reptiles can also not maintain their body temperature. So this is about the single circulation. Blood flows in a single loop. Now let us try to understand the blood and process of clotting of blood. Blood, as we have gone through the previous slide, it is a connective tissue having different components like WBC, RBC and platelets along with the plasma. Plasma is the matrix of blood. So we will try to understand the process of the blood clotting. Platelets are also called as the thrombocytes. They help in the clotting of the blood or coagulation of the blood in a situation when blood capillary ruptures due to certain injuries. This is the diagram you can see here, very illustrative diagram. Step 1, vascular spasm, that is the smooth muscles contracts causing the vasoconstriction. Second step, platelets plug formation, that is in the ruptured area, injury to lining of vessels exposes collagen fiber. Platelets adhere. Collagen fibers is a group of protein fiber. They are largest protein component in the nature, animal protein, And whenever there is any type of injury, breakage in blood capillaries, they just been formed and deposited at that area. Third, platelets releases chemical that makes nearby platelets sticky. Platelets plug forms, and thereafter the coagulation process. Here the special protein that is called fibrin forms a mesh or network that traps the red blood cells, platelets, and forms the clot. So blood clotting is a biochemical process actually. It has been triggered by certain factors, some enzymes, some cofactors. So basic purpose of all these chemical reaction is to produce the fibrin protein. That fibrin protein forms the mesh that prevents the flow or that filters only the serum from blood, and rest of the component of the blood remains inside the blood vessel. You might have experienced whenever there is an injury taking place, after some time some water-like substance is coming out. It is actually the serum. It goes through the network. It can pass through the fibrin mesh, but rest of the component of the blood remains inside the blood vessel. You can see here. This is the diagram. Here breakage has been taken place. Now the prevention measures started by means of formation of the collagen fiber that plugs the ruptured area, and later on fibrin also come into the play, and they forms a complete network or mesh of fibers that prevent the going out of the components of the blood outside of the environment. So only one component that comes out of the broken area, that is the breakage, is the serum. Serum is the water part of the blood which contains certain salts. So this is about the coagulation of the blood. Now let us try to understand the lymph. Lymph is also called as tissue fluid. It is a kind of connective tissue like the blood. So first of all, we will try to understand how does the lymph is being formed. So we are knowing that the blood is being transported to each and every part of the body, that is cells, by means of a distributory system that is called blood capillaries. You can see here, these are the cells, these are the cells, and each and every cells of the body is getting the nutrient through the blood. Blood flows through the blood capillary. These are the blood capillaries. These are the blood capillaries, you can see here. So our blood capillaries having a single cell thickening, it cannot hold everything inside. So while the process of circulation of blood is taking place, in the process of exchange of material, some of the component of the plasma spills out into this area. This area is called extra tissue space. This you can see here, extra tissue space is there. So this spilled out fluid is called extra tissue fluid or intracellular space fluid. You can call them in both of the ways. So these areas remain filled with this fluid, extra tissue fluid. Again, this extra tissue fluid is being drained back by means of some specialized capillaries called, as you can see here, lymphatic capillaries. So lymphatic capillaries imbibes back these extra tissue fluid in them, and all these lymphatic capillaries are connected to a large duct, that is the lymphatic duct. So when these extra tissue fluid get stored in the lymphatic duct, they are called as lymph. So lymph, you can understand, they are the part of the blood actually, but it contains the plasma, which is a bit different from that of the blood plasma. Blood plasma is a bit pale than the lymph plasma. Blood plasma having many components, lymph plasma having only the lymphocytes, some fat molecules, very less protein. So lymph are traveling through the lymphatic duct, lymphatic vessels, lymphatic nodes, and finally you can see here, this is the circulatory pathway, this is the artery, this one is the vein, and this is our lymphatic channel. You can see the lymphatic path. So again, these lymphs running to different parts of body, and finally they get attached with the veins here in this area, and they get back to the heart again. So this is also the part of our glucose circulatory system. You can see here lymph plays a very important role. We can understand the lymph with their function. So as we can see that there is an exchange of fluid taking place between the blood and cells and tissue. So they are often been referred as middlemen. Lymph contains the lymphocytes, therefore they are making the immune system of the body. We have, if we can remember the digestion process, fat can only be absorbed by the lymphatic duct, that is called lacteals. So there are three basic functions of the lymph and very vital functions. First, they help in the draining out of the extra tissue fluid. That's why they are called as the middleman. Second, they forms our immune system, and third, they help in the absorption of the fat. So this is about the lymph. Now finally we are going to learn about the blood pressure. Blood pressure is the pressure that is being experienced on the radial wall of the artery whenever blood is flowing through it. It has two differential value. One is at high point and other is on the low point of pressure. High point of pressure is called as systolic pressure, other is called diastolic pressure. These two differential value is due to the movement of the heart. Whenever our heart is contracted, the wall pressure will be the higher one, that is called systolic pressure. Whenever blood enters into the heart, they experiences less pressure, and that is called diastolic pressure. So normal pressure should be 120 by 80. 120 is the systolic pressure and 80 is the diastolic pressure. So blood pressure is been measured by an instrument called as sphygmomanometer. You can understand it by this diagram. This is the normal blood flow through the artery. Now what happens? How do we measure it? This is the pad, clothed pad that is wrapped over over the arm. This is the measurement system. Now this is the pump. So whenever air is been flowing through the space of the pad, they exert pressure on the artery wall. Naturally, artery wall will also exert pressure oppositely, and that is been measured. So whenever it is measured in two times. First, whenever there is a systole, it is measured. You can see doctor through the help of stethoscope knows when systole is there, then it measures systolic pressure. Second times he pumps air, and this time he confirms that it should be the diastole. So it is about the diastolic pressure. So normal systolic and diastolic pressure is 120 by 80. It is normal. Any aberration in this value is not the good thing. It may be if it is high, then hypertension is there. If it is low, then low pressure is there. It should be avoided and it should be controlled. Thank you very much for watching the video.